I want to look today at your future, the future of pulp and paper, because these are challenging times, but they're interesting ones, and there is a great opportunity. So in summary, my message is this, that paper and cardboard have, I believe, a fundamental, vital contribution to a sustainable future. We need these products, we will be using them, they have a tremendous amount to offer our future world, even though here in Europe there are great challenges. And I'm going to look at four areas. I'm going to look at demographics, I'm going to look at digital impact, I'm going to also look at distribution and our destiny. But first I want to look at demographics, because we live in an extraordinary time. We live in a day when 1 billion children are growing up. 1 billion people are under the age of 18 right now. All of them will be part of our consumer world within the next 15, 16 or 17 years. And all of them have parents. So we're dealing with 3 billion people, 1 billion children, 2 billion parents, 3 billion people who are consumed with the thought of the next generation. And it's that group of people that will drive the demand for paper and cardboard worldwide. And when you think about the fact that the middle class is growing explosively, and you add that together, you begin to see the future. You begin to see the reason why so many things are in short supply. It's the reason why, it's one of the many reasons why oil prices are high, because a rapidly growing populations in these poorest countries, which are becoming increasingly wealthy, they are driving demand. It's the same with food supply. We have a situation where hundreds of millions of people in the next 5 years will start to eat meat every day. And we know that if you just eat grain, that's one way of eating. But if you use the grain to feed an animal and then eat the animal, you drive a 5 or 6 times increase in the amount of grain that we need, because animals produce so little meat for every kilogram of grain. And at the same time, we see our world, in comparison, seems to be dying. You know, in Germany, if you live in Germany today, you need 8 great-grandparents to produce a single great-grandchild. Extraordinary. Why? Because if the average couple only has 1 or 1.2 or 1.3 children, then your population will halve in every generation. It's simple mathematics. You either have to make people or you have to import them. And Germany, France, Portugal, my country, Spain, Italy, and much of the rest of Europe have forgot how to make babies, and we are having problems importing them psychologically. So that is a challenge for the European Union, and we will see massive immigration. Where will it come from? Well, of course, it will come from some of these 1 billion people, all of whom I would love to spend, I'm sure, a little bit of time in a place like Sweden, working for a while, maybe. So when you balance this massive growth in most of the world, in terms of economic growth, population growth, with the relative decline of our wealthy countries, you still end up with a small growth in paper and pulp, of course, around 2% per year, and you can see the difference. This is China's growth, 7.45% growth per year in terms of pulp and paper. This is India, the US, and the world. And when we think about the fact that in the US, an average citizen uses, like we do, around 300 kilograms of paper a year, and yet in Africa, you see only, in many African countries, only 1 kilogram of paper used per person per year. You can see the opportunity for absolutely phenomenal paper and pulp growth. Look at India, even 4 kilograms, only 4 kilograms. Now, I know that's an average, but we have 1.3 billion people in India. We already have a middle class of 1, 2, or 3, let's say, it's actually more like 200 million people. When the middle class becomes 400 million people, and you start to see India paper consumption in the middle class up near the American level, then you begin to see the future. And in the meantime, we have other challenges too, especially with energy costs, and we can have a great debate about this massive energy spike and where it's going in the future. All one could say is that with the energy prices as they are, I'll just go back to that slide, it's quite clear that this is looking more and more like a bubble. The fundamentals of the energy industry have not changed so dramatically since earlier in the 200s, when we had an oil price of only $15 a barrel. Extraordinary to think that now. You can't tell me that the energy situation has deteriorated that dramatically in the last 6 months that would logically justify such a meteoric rise. So we will see all kinds of things happening to start bringing that price down over the next 5 or 10 years from where it is now, partly because at this fantastically high level, just about every other form of energy saving starts to make sense. And every person in Sweden, if they've not already installed geothermal heating for their own homes and hundreds of other innovations, every person in this country and across the whole world will be looking at ways to save energy. And of course, this applies to your industry as well. So let's come back to the future of newsprint. And we are already seeing an invasion, as you know, which will continue, of Russian newsprint, China newsprint, and so on. And at the same time, the newsprint industry in the United States, Australia, Canada, Japan, Sweden, France is suffering problems because, well, it's not just the readership, it's advertising revenue. And where is it going? It's going online. If we look at the US newspaper revenues, they fell almost 10% in the last 18 months. Online revenues have grown 19% during the same period. But nevertheless, magazines are doing pretty well, as is another area, which I'll come on to in a minute. But that's not the whole story if we're looking at newsprint globally. Just look at what is happening here in India. Incredibly exciting. 5,500 newspapers already. 25 million new readers of newspapers in the last 24 months alone. And it's just the start. So we are seeing India move rapidly into a newspaper age, and it will be a long, long time before we see India's newspaper market declining.